from 6 to 9 on MSNBC.
Shortly after I began this campaign, an elderly woman came up to me and she said, "You were in the Army, right?" And I said, "Yeah, I was." And she said, "Now you're running for Congress." And I said, "Yes, ma'am, I am." And she said, "Well, why would you want to leave the country's most respected institution for the country's least respected institution?"
The pastime of bashing Congress. Even guys who want to get there bash Congress. Anyway, while the Republican majority in the House has shrunk, the Tea Party is losing a little steam there. There are some new conservative faces on the Hill this year. And one of the most talked about is Republican Congressman Tom Cotton. He's a sixth-generation Arkansan. He has 2 degrees from Harvard, worked as a management consultant, spent 5 years serving in the infantry in Iraq and Afghanistan. Cotton won a Republican primary by 20 points with support from the Club for Growth, and now represents the 4th District, which includes, by the way, Bill Clinton's hometown of a place called Hope. Congressman Tom Cotton joins me now. Congressman, congratulations. Welcome to Washington.
Thank you, Chuck. It's good to be here. Mike Huckabee's hometown as well.
Mike Huckabee is also from Hope. Let me start with, why'd you decide to run for Congress? Because you were not recruited. You ended up having to. You weren't recruited by even the new Washington Republican establishment. What made you get in?
Chuck, there's a lot of the same reasons I decided to leave my law practice and join the Army so many years ago. I did that because of the 9/11 attacks. I thought the country was facing a perilous moment, and they needed new leaders. And I thought I could do my part in Iraq and Afghanistan. And as I watched the drift in Washington in the first 2 years of the Obama administration, I thought, again, we face a perilous moment. And this time it's the debt crisis we face. And when our incumbent congressman announced his retirement, I thought that I could perhaps provide some of that leadership here in Washington. So I wanted to come to Washington and try to fight for the same freedoms here that I did in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Well, let's talk about some of your first votes. You are being called what's part of the Hell No caucus. My apologies for the language there, but it wasn't mine. It's a cover story. Do you accept that idea that that's what your role is going to be in the Republican conference?
I don't think it'll be my role in the Republican conference, but I think that the Congress as a whole may need to say hell no to Barack Obama a little bit more. And frankly, I wish we might have had people here in 2009 and 2010 who were saying that as Obamacare was passed, as the stimulus was passed, as the Dodd-Frank financial regulatory bill was passed.
All right. Well, you won a district that was held by a Democrat for a long period of time. It was, as other districts in Arkansas were going Republican, the 4th was not going. And Barack Obama was winning by a bigger margin than he had won, than a lot of people had expected. Got the second biggest margin, if you will, for a second term going back some 50 years for a Democrat. So he has a mandate too. So why do you feel as if there should be more no's to him?
Well, I mean, his popular votes declined, his margin of the popular vote declined, his overall percentage of the popular vote declined, his electoral vote declined. So that is actually not as strong a performance as the White House has argued that it is, that he has some kind of massive mandate. But it's really not a matter of politics. It's a matter of what policy is right for the country. Our problem in Washington is that we have too much spending and too little growth. And we need pro-growth solutions in the Congress. We need to pass our bills, as the Speaker said we're going to, and call upon the Senate to act. The President can provide his input at any point, and we'll return to the regular constitutional order that our founders designed.
All right, but the country sent Democrats in control of the U.S. Senate, put Republicans in control of the U.S. House, put Democrats in control of the White House. So if you look at that as sort of the 3 wedges here of who designs legislation, Democrats control 2 of them. Are you going to be open to compromise where you only get, say, 40% of what you want?
We can be, and that's the way our Constitution is designed, though, is to require large consensus majorities, not just among elected officials in Washington, but among the American people. It's not designed to have the kind of rapid, radical change you had in the first 2 years of the Obama administration.
Well, then let's talk about that with taxes. There was a large majority for raising taxes on the wealthy.
But we had
so why didn't you vote for either part of those?
We had divided government under Bill Clinton in the last 6 years of his administration, and he also compromised on matters like welfare reform or the balanced budget agreement. That's not what you've seen from this president here in Washington. Now, when it comes to taxes, I wasn't a member of Congress when the fiscal cliff bill passed, but more broadly,
you had said, but you had said you would have voted against Plan B and you would have voted against it.
Correct, because I don't think we have a problem with tax receipts here in Washington. Tax receipts in 2012 were one of the highest years they've ever been after 2006 and 2007. Spending is what's gone up. We would have to raise taxes by more than 50% to where they are today, Chuck, to reach today's spending. To get the country back to a balanced budget and get the economy growing, we don't need to increase taxes taxes any further. What we need to do is reduce our spending and enact pro-growth policies to get economic growth back up to 3 or 4%.
A couple of quick things. The debt ceiling, government shutdown. Do you believe the debt ceiling should be used as leverage?
Well, we have 3 impending moments: the debt ceiling, the continuing resolution to fund the government, and then the sequester spending cuts have been delayed for 60 days. No one in the Republican conference is talking about a default on our sovereign debt. But we do need to use these moments to address the spending explosion that we've seen in the last 4 years.
It sounds like you want to set, are you saying you want to say debt ceiling, maybe set that aside and focus more on sequestering the other?
What I'm saying is that the Treasury has more than enough tax receipts every month to pay the interest on our sovereign debt. So there's nobody but Barack Obama who's talking about a default on our sovereign debt. We can prioritize payments on a monthly basis to ensure there's no default, and then we can have the hard negotiations necessary to get spending back under control.
So you are saying, hey, don't raise the debt ceiling, make Treasury have
unless there's real spending cuts, unless there's real structural reform.
Even though this is about previous spending, I mean, that is sort of, you were a business consultant. It is hard to sit there looking backwards. This is money that's already been promised.
But we can cover the interest payments on that previous spending. What Barack Obama wants is more spending going forward in the future. And frankly, he doesn't have much credibility on this. The Senate voted 4 times when he was in the Senate to raise the debt ceiling. He voted against it once. He couldn't be bothered to show up for it twice.
I want to ask you something quick. Apparently, one of your professors at Harvard was now a U.S. Senator from Massachusetts, Elizabeth Warren. Tell me about her class. You were telling me some interesting things off camera about her class, that it was among the most rigorous you took.
Yes. So Elizabeth Warren was my contract law professor on my first day in my first class at law school. She was a good professor. I learned the subject very well, probably not as well as others did, reflecting my grade. I knew that she was probably left of center based on her scholarship, but that didn't affect her classroom teaching. So I was a little bit surprised when she became an Obama administration official, and then especially a Senate candidate, just how far to the left she was. But we sit on committees that will be working together between the Senate and the House.
Did you say this was among the toughest classes you took?
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt.
She was one of the most rigorous professors.
No doubt that she was one of the most rigorous professors I took.
Interesting.
So it'll be nice to meet her across the table as a peer this time, as opposed to a pupil.
Fair enough. Hey, Tom Cotton from Arkansas, welcome to Washington. Thanks for coming on. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, Chuck. Great to have you.
A little breaking news before we go to break. We're following this.